The DPCS leads the development and growth of Imperial College Union's clubs, societies and projects, of which there are around 400. They work with the Deputy President Finance and Services to train and support every student who takes on a volunteer role in CSPs. Hi Jacob, thanks for coming along today. Please could you introduce yourself and tell us why students should vote for you to be DPCS next year?
Yeah, certainly can. Thank you for having me on today. I'm Jacob. I'm a fourth year geology student at Imperial, just coming to the end of my degree. This year I am the Vice President of Clubs and Societies within the Royal School of Mines Union, serving as the lead of the management group. I'm also the Wellbeing Deputy Rep for Science and Engineering, and I've held several positions across CSPs in terms of committee positions over the past 3 years of my time at Imperial. This has given me significant experience within the CSP network at Imperial and within ICU. And between these roles, I've seen improvement over the years, but I've also seen glaring issues that haven't been solved and addressed, whether that's at MG level or CSP level or somewhere in between or even higher up. And these issues are also causing people not to want to run for positions. I mean, I've spoken to people throughout the RSMU and within CSPs and committees elsewhere, and people just aren't wanting to run for these positions anymore, just because of a lot of the issues that there are within this current system. And I want to try and adapt it and gain insights from the CSPs and people who are at Imperial who could be leading these clubs to societies but aren't, because there's just issues that they aren't being solved. And getting feedback from these individuals and CSPs and their leadership will help sort of dictate how CSP system works at Imperial, because at the end of the day, everyone running for these positions of volunteers, they're all students, they all have their own stuff going on top of this. This is their own free time. So making the system as easy and smooth as possible, and making sure that everything runs well and works for students, not just in terms of union staff and even sabbatic officers. We aren't there just to tell students what to do, we're there to represent the students as well. So being able to make sure there's feedback from students that's integrated into decision making and policy is one of the key things I want to try and bring to the role. And with all my experience leading the RSMU management group this year, I've taken feedback on from all the DepSocs and sports clubs under my remit to make sure I've been the best leader I can for them to possibly be. And I'd do a very similar thing if I was DPCS next year.
Thanks, Jacob. So next up, we've got a question from a student, and that's, how do you plan on improving the performance of key union services, such as events and trip approval?
I mean, it's all about decreasing the bureaucracy involved in these roles. There's so many forms and so many things to fill in just for one single event, even if it's just like running a quick meeting or an AGM on a random night in the next couple of weeks for elections. And this all comes down to reviewing the structures and processes that are currently in place in Imperial. So it could be things like combining the budgeting and event proposal form into one, so that everything's in one place, not having to start both at the same time to then cross-reference like ID numbers, and working with CSPs to gain their feedback and see what we can do for them in terms of improving the entire process of key union services. Having organised trips and events over the past few years, another key problem is getting feedback 2 or 3 days before the event, especially if it's major feedback, and then having to adapt to it really quickly, really last minute, based off just a couple of bullet points, maybe being like, oh, please add this risk, and that's it. So making sure that all feedback given is well explained and thorough, compared to just being like a one-off comment about the entire situation. Just because we are all students, none of us have particularly experience making risk assessments professionally or doing event proposal, trip proposal budgets professionally. We are all just here, some of us like, completely different degrees to what the roles we are doing. So making sure that feedback is consistent between CSPs as well in terms of event and trip proposals, and making sure that it's well explained and why the feedback has come through, instead of just being like, do this, because for some reason people don't see it. So I recently organised an event and my feedback was, add hot drinks. I wasn't serving any hot drinks, so why do I have to add it? And then when you start thinking about it, people have hot drinks over the weekend, I can't stop them, and need to be prepared in case someone burns themselves. And it's just things like that that initially make me go like, make me frustrated. But it wasn't making sure that process is like, this is why we're having to add this on, which make everything a lot clearer for people. Also explain to students why we are doing it. And just decrease the bureaucracy involved, whether it's like just stopping stuff at MG level instead of having to take up to the full union, and vice versa.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. So next, a question about your manifesto. So you say in your manifesto that you'd like to improve communication and transparency from union to CSPs about processes and updates. And this is actually something that the current DPCS, Christian Cooper, who's running again this year, says he would also like to address. So how would you change things to improve communication and transparency if you're elected?
Good question. Most of the updates come via an email once a week, and a lot of people are bombarded with emails. Stuff gets missed. It's a classic. We can easily contact everyone using other forms of media like social media, which is becoming more and more prevalent. Just to have like a little Instagram story being like, update for the week. Here we go. Have a look. We'll just make sure that people actually catch up. And people may be more happy to read like a quick blog post that's, you know, a couple of paragraphs compared to reading an email that on a phone really isn't accessible. A lot of the emails coming out currently, they're not readable or easily legible if you're reading anything except a laptop. And some of them just have massive paragraphs. These are a lot of the update emails from the activities team, as well as also coming from the DPs themselves. So making sure that the updates are also really accessible for people just to be able to read them and understand them quite quickly. So that things like breaking down emails and having like quick bullet points and TLDRs on them, just so they can see where things are. And one other thing is looking at maybe introducing like a CSP forum. So we have CSPB currently, where each MG comes up and has like a little chat representing who talk about what they've done and what things are like for them, and we have discussions and such. However, some CSP stuff will be missed, or it could be a case of it could be affecting only a couple of clubs per MG, and it's sort of played on the down low a little bit, whereas it could be affecting multiple clubs across multiple MGs, and it's actually a bigger problem than it's realised. So being able to have a forum where CSPs can directly engage with the activity team in DPCS, and not just the 2-hour drop-in sessions they currently have, just so we can be clear and explain why the processes that we have in place are in place, and explaining why the decisions we have made have been made, and just being open and being able to answer questions as well. Just being open in everything we do. I know, for example, earlier this year, the event proposal deadline for proposals was pushed back forward by like a week, so I think it's now going to 3 or 4 weeks. And a lot of CSPs were just told it's because you have high workload, and it's like, knowing that from the CSP level, that looks a bit bad. Whereas I know, seeing on the management group, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in terms of bureaucracy and other things that did mean that it was better for the overall system to have that slightly extended deadline. And it comes through with feedback as well. You know, if we still have the 2-week deadline, feedback 2 days beforehand would be after the event. So just there's a load of decisions that have been made that haven't always been clearly passed on to students clearly, and that's one thing I want to address in trying to engage in other forms of media and open events with CSPs and open chats.
Okay, that's all of our questions for you, so thank you for your time, Jacob.